Airbus sebagai partner terpercaya dan handal bagi TNI AU, bangga dapat terus mendukung peningkatan kemampuan multifungsi pesawat dan helikopter TNI AU. Keduanya akan memainkan peran penting dalam misi transportasi pasukan dan kargo, pengisian taktis bahan bakar di udara, misi bantuan kemanusiaan, serta tanggap darurat. Produk-produk Airbus sudah terbukti menjadi aset yang handal untuk TNI AU dan Republik Indonesia. Atas nama Airbus Corporation, saya mengucapkan selamat dan sukses atas terselenggaranya kegiatan seminar Internasional Air Power 2022 dan Dirgahayu TNI Angkatan Udara ke-76, Swat Buana Paksa. Saksikan Seminar Internasional Air Power TNI Angkatan Udara.
Doesn't take much to feel the rush with nothing but your eyes on it. How about we do just like we do, two crazy fools just breaking free.
Dari ketinggian 20.000 kaki dalam kokpit F-16 Fighting Falcon TNI AU, kami mengajak, ikutilah Seminar Internasional Air Power dalam rangka hari ulang tahun ke-76 TNI Angkatan Udara dengan mengusung tema pembangunan kekuatan udara nasional untuk menghadapi ancaman pada era perang generasi kelima. Salam Swat Buana Paksa.
on live stream March 2022.
Kami dari Pegasus Family mengajak mari ikuti seminar Internasional Air Power dalam rangka memperingati hari ulang tahun ke-76 TNI Angkatan Udara dengan tema pembangunan kekuatan udara nasional untuk menghadapi ancaman pada era perang generasi kelima. Pada hari Rabu tanggal 30 Maret 2022 pukul 08.00 sampai pukul 15.30 waktu Indonesia Barat. Jangan sampai ketinggalan. Pegasus.
Halo Sobat Airman, mari kita ikuti seminar Internasional Air Power dalam rangka HUT ke-76 TNI Angkatan Udara pada hari Rabu tanggal 30 Maret 2022 pukul 08.00 waktu Indonesia Barat. Selamat menyaksikan. Salam Kencana.
Hello to everyone, my name is Olivier Bourdin. I'm the country director of PT Thales Indonesia. On behalf of Thales, we are glad to support the International Air Power Seminar 2022. We hope to continue of supporting the Indonesian Air Forces as solution provider for the success of air defense system in your country. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you so much.
Happy anniversary to the International Air Force.
TNI AU bangga dapat terus mendukung peningkatan kemampuan multifungsi pesawat dan helikopter TNI AU. Keduanya akan memainkan peran penting dalam misi transportasi pasukan dan kargo, pengisian taktis bahan bakar di udara, misi bantuan kemanusiaan, serta tanggap darurat. Produk-produk Airbus sudah terbukti menjadi aset yang handal untuk TNI AU dan Republik Indonesia. Atas nama Airbus Corporation, saya mengucapkan selamat dan sukses atas terselenggaranya kegiatan seminar Internasional Air Power 2022 dan Dirgahayu TNI Angkatan Udara ke-76, Swa Buana Paksa.
Let it burn, don't let it fade. I'm sure I'm not being rude, but it's just our attitude. Were you lying all the time? Was it just
Selamat datang kembali Bapak Ibu di sesi 2 Seminar Internasional Air Power bersama saya Friska Clarissa dan juga Kolonel Rujito. Semoga semakin semangat ya setelah sesi makan siang ini ya.
Mestinya begitu. Sudah menikmati kopi, makan siang yang begitu nikmat, kita lanjutkan dengan sesi yang berikutnya.
Betul. Kami harap untuk Bapak Ibu menempati tempatnya kembali karena diskusi akan segera kita mulai. Tadi kita sudah berbincang banyak di sesi yang kedua ini, nanti juga akan ada paparan dari narasumber ketiga untuk sesi kedua ini. Baik, diskusi akan segera kita mulai.
Yeah, we would like to invite back to the stage Dr. Alban and General Sepro. Demikian juga Ibu Kuri Maharani, mohon bisa bergabung di panggung.
Untuk Ibu Kuri, izin kami akan bacakan terlebih dahulu kurikulum vitae dari Ibu Kuri Maharani, PhD, yang menjadi narasumber ketiga kita siang hari ini.
Yes,
please. Ibu Kuri Maharani, PhD, Faculty Member, Department of International Relations, Binus University, lecturing on Global Security, Architecture, Strategic Industry, and Global Security and Indonesian Defense Strategy. Pada tahun 2016, Ibu Kuri mendapatkan PhD in Defense Management and Leadership, Cranfield University, thesis on the contribution of offset to defense industrialization in Indonesia, 2018 hingga 2019, mengerjakan research coordinator on Defense Transformation Pokja 8 dan 2016 hingga 2019 member of Working Group on Strategic and High-Tech Industry National Committee for Defense Industrial Policy. Kita sambut bersama Ibu Kuri Maharani, PhD.
Selamat datang Ibu Kuri. Selamat datang Bu Kuri, ini kolega saya sama-sama di Cranfield University. Terima kasih.
Selamat siang Ibu Kuri, silakan, apa kabar? Setelah tadi kita mendengarkan paparan dari Dr. Alban dan juga General Stephen M. Shepro, berikutnya kita akan dengarkan paparan dari Ibu Kuri Maharani. Silakan untuk memberikan materi siang hari ini.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Before I start my presentation, allow me to send my highest appreciation for this the Committee of International Relations seminar, especially for the Chief of the Staff Air Force of Republic of Indonesia, Marshal Fajar Prasetyo, along with his respectable staffs, and also distinguished speakers that are already here and presented before me, colleagues from National Resilience Institute from France, and then from US and from Royal Australian Air Force. And also distinguished guests. This seminar is a further collaboration, I guess. It's a jointly organized by Indonesian Air Force and also a number of academics. And I'm honored to be given a part on the front stage. And I cannot take enough credits, and I really want to appreciate all my colleagues that have been working on the backstage to make this event successful. And this is actually my third invitation to the Air Force, and I think this reflects the extent of trust that the Air Force has extended to us and as academics, to contribute to important debates and also efforts to ponder the way ahead for the Air Force in particular and also the Indonesian defense readiness in general. And I sincerely hope that not just for myself, but other colleagues from other universities, not only from BINUS, but also University of Indonesia, from Paramadina, President University, and else, will be invited as well and become part of this joint efforts. And I think it is important for having this collaboration because when we speak about the fifth generation warfare, the role of technology is getting more and more significant, more than before. And yet it is something that the state actually cannot control from cradle to grave. There are so many actors, including non-state actors. Academics is also one. Therefore, we need to have a relationship that go beyond an arm's length. And in BINUS, we start these efforts by doing several research on future warfare. And we also hope to have a potential collaborations with military think tanks such as the National Air and Space Power Center of Indonesia or NAPSI. Okay, allow me to start my presentation without any further ado. So I was requested to speak about the air power technology to fight the fifth generation warfare. But then what is actually a fifth generation warfare? There is no common definition really, and today we see war have been fought in many different ways, not only the one with high technology, but also the one with asymmetrical characters facing non-state actors using low technology, but probably as effective. So we need to be careful with the terms of fifth generation warfare. And I would like to locate that on the strategic environment in our own neighbors. So for the structure of the presentation, I will talk about the balance of power in the region. And then what are the technologies that might tip the balance and pushing the boundaries even further. And this is very important, not just for the sake of the superpower themselves, but also for us, the bystanders, looking for a silver bullet, if you like. And the second, I would talk about the Air Force that is suitable for the purpose of our own foreign policy. That is to be a neutral power in the region. What does neutrality means? And then, is there any option but having an arm or guarded neutrality? And then, is there any models that we can emulate in terms of neutral states? When we talk about technology, we tend to be drawn towards gold standards. Big countries with flashy deep defense equipment. That is not necessarily bad, but also may not be suitable for our conditions, especially we as a regional, well, if you may so, medium regional to be power, but with modest defense economy. I think I've had this conversation with several gentlemen near to my seats before. One of the biggest challenges for Indonesian Air Force is to overcome what we call as the tyranny of affordability. Air Force has never been prioritized because having a big Air Force is very, very expensive. And therefore, we need to look at other models that could be just as effective as a strong country's air power model, but with less cost. Is it possible? We will talk about that. And finally, I don't really intend to put down the spirit of this seminar, but I would like to bring you down to the earth and think about the challenges of technology catching up. Yeah. We will talk about the challenges of cost escalation and also life cycle costs and access of technology that might hamper us from doing modernization. Okay, sorry. Okay, next please. Next. Okay, this is, you might have seen these pictures many times before, and for me this is the best pictures to emulate, to reflect what happens in the region. Yeah. First, on the left side, you see that the balance of power of this region is literally shaped by competitions of two superpowers, and they are actually here, our colleagues from US and from People's Republic of China. Yeah. And some academics agreed that the flashpoints that potentially become an open war in the future remains the Taiwan Straits. However, the last development have shown that another flashpoints possibly occur around South China Sea, and for us it also includes Indonesian part of Natuna waters. So last year we conducted a study on trends of maritime incidents in South China Sea, and we found out that there are increasing number of incidents and violence, but there is no significant increase in escalation or tensions because the preference of conflicting parties are towards diplomacy, that is a good news for us. However, the trends of actors involved in the incidents are actually widening. We have the United States, the British, Australian also involved in a number of incidents, and there are 4 incidents involving violence and the use of threats to violence between US and China, yeah, and 3 of them involving the use of air powers. For example, in 2014, we have Chinese warplanes buzz a US Navy surveillance aircraft east of Hainan Island. This is actually cannot be separated from the development in South China Sea with ASEAN failure to maintain China, not to enlarge its presence in South China Sea, and which also gave way to foreign actors to enter the scene, and through freedom of navigations, warships from US have conducted tens, I think it's more than 50 times of freedom of navigations operation, which include some dangerous maneuvers that can only be performed by experienced sailors, but this also create, or rather worsen the tensions in the region. And if you see the next, and if you see the current arms dynamic between the US coalition of the willing, especially the AUKUS and the Quad, and also with China, of course, this gives a sense that there is an arms race going on in the region, but we, Indonesia, and also our ASEAN counterparts remain as the bystander. And we see that although until now the US is still leading in some technologies, conventional technologies, well, partly because they spend the most for military and also for the research and development. But China has great potential to catch up as it boosts its defense expenditures as well. So And in terms of new technology, I think everybody here probably have been aware of the fact that Beijing is now already at the front foot of new technologies such as hypersonic missiles, drones, and also even the underwater unmanned vehicles. So Beijing also invested heavily for fifth generation warfare systems such as big data analytics, that views a variety of data to improve automatization and creates comprehensive real-time pictures as parts to win informationized wars. And we also understand that China is also looking to embed artificial intelligence even more, to enhance autonomy in control, command and control. And in AI development, it is said that China's development is actually almost parallel to that of the United States, which leads to the concern of the other party, of course. So, what are some disruptive technologies in air power that could further tip the balance between the superpowers? Next, please. Okay, I'm sure some of the aspects of the technology have been covered by the previous speakers, but I would like to highlight three major technologies that's currently being developed further and could potentially be disruptive for the conduct of the future war. The first is the future generation of jet fighters. The second is the combat UAVs, and the third is hypersonic missiles. For the future generation of jet fighters, we have diverse approach, from the west and from the east. From the west, we have the U.S. going on alone, and then from the Europe, we have at least two approach, one is led by the British and the other is led by a combination of France and Germany. This is because I think some of it have been affected by the Brexit, which really widened the distrust among the European counterparts, and I would like to point out that among all of this solution, the future generation of jet fighters might have something to offer Indonesia because it is currently being developed and there is possibility for Indonesian participation in it. The second disruptive technology is the unmanned combat aerial vehicles with so many pros. For example, cost-effective solution. It is considerably cheaper than fighter jet, if you may. But it also needs to be supported by electronic warfare system. It is not something that could go alone, in a battle. And the third is hypersonic missile, which we all understand the impact of it. Among others, is speeding up the conduct of warfare, presenting probably almost perfect strategic surprise because it is so difficult to counter. And there is no regulations yet as to its proliferation. Next. So for the future air combat aircraft, we have three options. The first is US with the next generation air dominance. And we understand the technology demonstrators have been flown 2 years ago. And Lockheed Martin might be the industrial lead, the prime integrator for the overall programs. And we see that this move as an anti-offset, that the fact that the US choose to go alone and not involving other countries in the R&D process shows that the concern of US with superiority. And the second option is actually the one led by France, Germany, and Spain, the Future Combat Air Systems, which was signed in 2016 and hopefully will enter service by 2040. But among the partners, there are process of negotiating the work share and else, and we are still waiting for the progress of that program. The third, which I see is also the interesting, the most interesting perhaps, yeah, because I tend to have more information on this, is the UK-led Tempest, which derived the participation from Italy and Sweden. Why it is interesting? Because Sweden used to be a neutral country, having their own Air Force production, yeah, and now they decided to join with UK. And the program was launched 4 years ago, and now it's in conceptualization phase, and it aimed to have operational capability for 5 years before the France and the Germany. And if they succeeded, then they will have considerable leverage over their European counterparts. And they are still looking for new partners. News circulated that the Netherlands might join, yeah, and also other countries, and they are aiming, especially market in Middle East, some of the countries that have been the traditional customers of British and European aircrafts. And the 6th generation aircraft Tempest, they have numerous innovative features. For example, the piloted version will have virtual avatar co-pilot to free the pilot from numerous responsibilities. Yeah, so they will have both pilot and unpiloted versions, and they have capacity to process 10,000 times the military theater data if you compare that with Typhoon. So they would present a considerably revolution, if you may. Yeah. But still, they are in development, so we need to wait, yeah, further for the proof of their claims. Yeah, but I think there is question about whether Indonesia will have the opportunity to have a technological leap. Yeah, currently we are at the 4.5 generation of Air Force, yeah, with our fighter jets. But is it possible for us to have a leap to 6th generation, and therefore bypassing 1 or even 2 stages? It remains a how do you call it? Remain probably not daydream, but something worth to think about. Yeah, with all the risks and the cost involved. The second, next please. Okay, the second disruptive technology that everyone has been hailing, yeah, because it's been proven to be quite effective in several battles that with significant role of Air Force involvement and air power, is the combat UAV. Is combat UAV a silver bullet? We kind of wish that this is like the technology that we could really adopt. It's effective, it's economic in terms of cost, yeah, and it's been proven in several battles. But we might need to think about whether, to the extent that the UAVs could play a role in a battle, because we citing the research done by our colleagues, yeah, in the Tactical Command College of Israel Defense Forces, yeah, the combat drones may not be as effective as we wish it to be. Yeah. Taking example of the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, it is shown from the data that the number of casualties, especially with the boots on the ground, remains very high. It's more than 2,900 people killed, yeah, within 44 days of battle. And then Although the research acknowledged that the battle was conducted among peers competitors, meaning that both sides have considerably equal military capability, but we still have to acknowledge that Azerbaijan is actually better, in terms of economy and more modern, and they are the only one that operate drones. So the drones is helping to tip the balance, but it doesn't win the war for the Azerbaijan by themselves, And further, data shows that the average destruction by the drone is around 13 to 22 per day, which is not really an overwhelming rate. So, it's a cost-effective solution, but it's not the only one that we require to win the war or the battle. The third one is next. The hypersonic missile. Hypersonic missile is currently being controlled by several countries, which is limited to the Russia, China, US, and now Australia. My understanding is maybe having a collaboration, with the private actors from US. And if it happens, then we can see the possibility of adopting such technology for safeguarding our territory. However, the nature of the hypersonic missile itself is offensive, because it aims to overcoming the tyranny of distance. So you don't really use that actually to defend your territory. You use that to attack. And missile itself is it's mostly seen as offensive, rather than defensive. Although it really depends on the distance, and the reach of the missile. But whether it is possible for us to adopt hypersonic missile or even other type of missile, ballistic, for example, is still a long way to go, because if we see here, although Indonesia have the indigenous programs and space capability, we need to overcome several ladders of technological challenge in order to comprehend and to manage the technology, the missile technology. And although the hypersonic missile or even the ballistic missile, the ballistic missile, for example, it is being controlled by several treaty agreements, and yet every 1.5 years there will be one new country having this kind of weapon. So international arms control, I don't think it's very effective to prevent the proliferation of such technology. But even if such control doesn't exist for hypersonic missile, we still need to find the right partners, and we still need to consider the impact to ASEAN, and the balance of power and the stability within ASEAN could be disrupted if such high technology is adopted by one or more members. So having consider several options of disruptive technology, are they really options for us? We need to look inside Indonesia, our foreign policy, which is free and active, and if we operationalize that in the context of future conflict, it will translate it into neutrality or neutral positions. And it's not easy to find a model of armed neutrality, and I have to acknowledge that the literatures are poor. It is severely understudied. I don't know why, but if you see the posture, the defense economy of neutral countries, for example, next, we have here defense economy of several countries, countries that acknowledge themselves to be neutral, for example, like Sweden, Finland, and if you compare that to Indonesia, you will see an interesting pattern here. Indonesia spend less on Air Force in compared to those countries. In average, you can see the black dash lines, showing the average. We can conclude that even in the peacetime posture, neutral states maintain considerable air power. We need to study further as to why they spend so much on air power. But the control of maritime territory, which preconditions air power, seems to be one of the major driver behind it. What does it mean being a neutral country? Neutral country means we don't involve in any conflict or in war of other countries. If we are getting attacked, of course we have the right to self-defend. But if two or more other parties having armed conflict, we don't want to be involved, then we declare neutrality. And by declaring neutrality, we have rights and obligations. One of the rights is for us not to be attacked. But obligations-wise, we cannot prevent the belligerent or the conflicting parties from using, for example, our silence of communication, because they have the rights of transit, passage, and similar rights. However, if one of the conflicting parties, the belligerent, use our territory to launch attack to another party, then we lose our neutrality. Even though we don't approve that act, we still lose our neutrality. So by being neutral, actually our life has become more difficult. Because not only we have to maintain not being affected by the conflict, but also we need to control every inch of our territory not to be used by any conflicting parties to launch attack to other conflicting parties. So this is why the air power with capability to surveillance, to maintain situational awareness is very important for neutral states. Next. So what are the challenges for us country with modest defense economy and neutral with no alliances to share our burden? First, that we need to acknowledge again that air power is one of the most expensive systems on Earth. And even worse, the unit production cost of the weapon systems, especially the one related to air power, is increasing. And it's getting it's increasing more than the rate of the increase of our defense budget. And this is not only the problem of Indonesia, but also all countries, big or small. The challenge is the same. But because of that, because of the cost escalation, we need to extend more and more lifetime. And by doing that, we actually put higher risk of our Air Force inventory. Here you can see the cost escalation from the British Air Force. They really count the different unit production costs of fighter aircrafts and bomber aircrafts and found that there is considerably cost escalation. This, I think, needs to be done by Indonesia and also other air forces as well. And the second is, as I said before, because of the cost escalation, we need to think about life cycle costs. So when we think about, for example, purchasing combat drones, the procurement cost might be far, far below the fighter jets. But how about its operation and maintenance? Yeah, of course, it's supposed to be less as well, but we need to be aware of the life cycle costs. Yeah, the cost of procurement, the cost of operation, the maintenance, so we could have a better planning, and we could think about the combinations of weapons, yeah, that serve us the best, but at the least cost possible. So I think for the Air Force, especially for Indonesia, we need to calculate this before we think about which technology, especially those mature technology, commercial off the shelf, they're not going anywhere. They are available, yeah. But when we procure the wrong technology, we are committed, yeah, to maintain and to operate that technology for the rest of its lifetime. So I think after we talk about high technology, we need to be brought down back to the earth and think about better planning, because technology, yeah, whether they are disruptive or conventional, will incur higher costs in the future, yeah, and all that matters for us now is actually better planning, yeah, better planning, and therefore we choose the best technology for us, and not being trapped to purchase or to receive white elephant, yeah, or gold plating our weapon systems. Perhaps that's all I can say for this forum. Hopefully some of you might find it useful for future research and discussion. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Terima kasih Ibu Kuri Maharani PhD atas paparannya tadi. Kita sudah mendengarkan sejumlah sudut pandang dari 3 narasumber kita, dan kita akan mulai untuk masuk sesi Q&A atau tanya jawab, mulai dari peserta yang hadir secara offline atau langsung di ruangan ini, dan juga nanti akan hadir juga secara virtual. Silahkan Bapak Ibu, seperti biasa akan ada 3 pertanyaan untuk sesi ini.
Mungkin sebelum kita masuk pada sesi tanya jawab, izinkan saya berikan panduan sedikit. 2 narasumber kita yang pertama tadi berbicara tentang spesifikasi pesawat yang tentunya berbeda, yang masing-masing mempunyai kelebihan dan kekurangan masing-masing. Oleh karena itu, pertanyaan sebaiknya tidak menyangkut masalah kapabilitas pesawat untuk dibandingkan satu dengan yang lainnya, tetapi bagaimana kalau Indonesia memiliki itu, lalu bagaimana kita menggunakannya, bagaimana kita memeliharanya dan lain sebagainya. Saya kira sekitar itu yang bisa ditanyakan.
Ya.
Ya, saya persilakan dari ruangan dulu. Apakah dari ruangan ini ada yang akan bertanya? Ya, saya persilakan dari sebelah kanan, sebutkan nama dan satuannya.
Terima kasih yang terhormat Kasau, Wakasau, para pejabat dan hadirin sekalian serta para narasumber yang berbahagia. Air Force Marshal Wastum, Air Defense Sector 3 Commander. I want to ask question to Dr. Alban Sia-Sia. You mentioned in your page number 9 of your presentation, you mentioned that the data link system of the Rafale, either Link 16 or our national link system. I assume that this is not original data link system of Rafale. So I just want to have confirmation about that. And the second question is still for you. We all aware that this aircraft, Rafale, is only one subsystem among the big system of air battle management, as mentioned by Mr. Andi Wijayanto. So in order to make this aircraft as a game changer of Indonesian Air Force in this region, what do you think of infrastructure that we have to build to fulfill the requirement. In other words, what kind of prerequisite conditions in order to make this aircraft become the real game changer for us in our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the first question. We're going to the second question. Ada pertanyaan kedua, Bapak Ibu yang hadir secara langsung. Jika belum, bagaimana kita langsung jawab terlebih dahulu for Dr. Alban.
Thank you very much, sir, for your question. So I would like to try to answer in the limit of my knowledge. Because as you can imagine, there is a part of this question that I'm not aware about, because they might be in a negotiation that occur between the two parties. But from what I know is that Rafale, of course, is compatible with Link 16, because Link 16 is a NATO system, and it's equipped on most or even all NATO system. But the idea is that, as you can see, there has been Rafale who have been sold to several countries which are not NATO countries, such as India, such as Egypt, such as Qatar. And these countries also have their own data link, which might not be similar to the Link 16. And the idea is that the data link that can be used actually on Rafale could be Link 16 or a domestic data link. Regarding the second part of the question about the infrastructure, I would say that I don't know exactly what are the existing infrastructure of the Indonesian Air Force, so it's complicated for me to answer to this question. But basically, I believe that there are usually, when there is a procurement of aircraft, it's always kind of a package that is provided. I mean, you have the aircraft, you have also simulator, you have all these kind of things that go with it. And I believe that the people who are in charge of the negotiation already discussed about all the infrastructure needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alban. Is there any question? Apa ada pertanyaan lagi dari sini? Oh baik, silakan.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Sam Yoga. J'ai été élevé à l'école militaire de 11e promotion. Now I continue in English. I know very well that Rafale and F-15 are the great aircraft on its class. Both of you are very great, very good. But now my question is there any possibilities to, let's say, we have special weaponry for Rafale and also for F-15. Can we change those arsenal? I mean, some arsenal from F-15, can we use it in Rafale and vice versa as well? Thank you very much. And for Mbak Kuri, pertanyaan saya adalah, tadi disampaikan itu ada choke point di selat-selat yang kita punya. Nah, bagaimana mungkin kita bisa menjaga neutrality kalau ternyata choke pointnya itu ada di tempat kita? Jadi bagaimana kita bersikap menghadapi kondisi tersebut? Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih Marskal Samyoga untuk pertanyaannya. Would you like to take the question? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So if I understood the question, it was, can you integrate weapons from the F-15 onto Rafale and vice versa? And I think, so when a country orders a weapons system, it usually requests which weapons it wants integrated. There is some commonality, but every time, if there's a weapon requested that isn't on that configuration, then that has two types of tests that need to be done. One needs to be integrated onto the bus, the operational framework of the aircraft, and then second, it has to be tested operationally in flight. So that's the kind of thing that needs to be done. I think, usually you could put any weapon system on any aircraft. I won't speak to the policy piece, which is one thing, but anything can be done. If it's not already on there, then it could be developed. I think that's the best way I can answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alban.
Dr.
Do you want to
Alban?
respond to that question? Because he asked about how we can integrate the two aircraft systems. Is it possible to do that?
Actually, my answer will be exactly the same. I mean, all depends about that. But I noticed that you speak French, donc merci beaucoup. But the good thing is that I'm not the only one who speaks French here. But actually, yeah, my answer won't be different because the general here had answered perfectly to your question. I cannot add anything. But I think you had also a question for Bakuri, yeah?
Please, Dr. Kri.
Okay, thank you for the question. It's funny because I was actually named after Marie Curie. Curie is a French name, and yet I cannot speak French at all, sir. So, thank you for the question. I think it's very relevant to raise such questions because we have this assumption that ASEAN will remain unity and neutral in the case of armed conflict between other parties, superpowers that will affect us. As I said before, the flashpoint, the main flashpoint is not within the ASEAN or Indonesian territory, it's outside. But we are in the line of fire, of power projection between conflicting parties. So, and the possibility of them using our sea lines of communication is very high because our sea lines of communication are among the main routes of shipping for both commercial and warships in the region. So what are we to do if there are power projections, trying to cross our territory, and can we control what they are going to do within our territory to maintain neutrality? As I said before, it's not easy to maintain neutrality. First, we have to know who are using our sea lines of communication and what they are doing, and be able to prevent them from doing things that could harm our neutrality. That required 3 different steps and 3 different capabilities. And the other question would be, what if such incident happen, Indonesia remains the neutral one and might be the only neutral country in ASEAN. We have to acknowledge that the definition of neutrality is shifting. ASEAN used to think that being neutral means keeping the superpower outside the region. But after the end of Cold War, we invite the superpower, the major powers, to come in. But we manage their competitions of influence. But now, because of our failure to manage our conflicts, with other parties, especially with China, we tend to draw in superpowers to balance the stability in the region, and ASEAN countries start to define their neutrality in different ways. For example, for Indonesia, being neutral means we can't even let the U.S. Surveillance ship to land after they operate. But for Singapore, for Philippines, for Malaysia, they are happy to host foreign soldiers and bases in their territory. So I think we need to have two scenarios. First is when we can keep the ASEAN united and being neutral, and the second is if we have to be the last person, the last country standing as neutral in the region. I think, and I think the Air Force could really lead the research, the inquiry into that. Thank you, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Kuri. Is there any question from the audience here? Jika Ibu Bapak ada yang mau bertanya di floor. Jika belum ada pertanyaan yang masuk lewat video conference. atau yang bergabung secara online pada siang hari ini dari Atase Udara Atut RI di Paris. Silakan, selamat siang. Selamat siang, Bapak. Apa kabar? Silakan, Bapak. Thank you, terima kasih Bapak atas pertanyaannya. Izinkan saya untuk membacakan kembali. Let me reread the question. So can you explore more to Dr. Alban? Can you explore more about the stepstone of the cooperation regarding Rafale procurement to build Indonesia defense industry independency, especially in fighter technology? What can France support Indonesia to build this capacity? And for your information, Indonesia currently in the process to build Indonesian fighter as well.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for this question. The first thing I would say is that in Indonesia there is a law which is the law 16/2012 on offset transfer of technology and counter trade and local content. So basically, according to this law, any procurement should lead to reinforce the domestic industry. Regarding the specifics of the Rafale, as I mentioned, I don't know the details. Maybe there is someone from KKIP who is here who knows about that. But basically, what we could expect maybe is maybe composite for aerospace sector. It could be different kind of assets or subsystem that could also be provided. You know, the great thing for me today is that I am seated next to the real expert about offset in Indonesia, and I think she would answer way better than me to this question.
Would you answer this question, Ibu Kuri, please?
Okay. Okay. This is what I call strategic surprise because I didn't see that coming. Okay. Well, about offsets, actually, the purchase of Rafale, if I may, the purchase of Rafale signify a new approach to offsets. Previously, we never managed to get significant transfer of technology because we always buy in small numbers. And we tend to buy from different sources, for similar kind of technology, because we want to reduce our dependency to one source. That is a dilemma that we keep having whenever we make procurement decisions, as a neutral or non-alliance country. But with Rafale, there is new approach because for the first time we committed ourselves to buy significant number of aircraft. And with this large commitment comes large offsets. I think just this morning I teach this to my students, and we use Gripen examples between Brazil and Thailand. So Brazil procure, I think it was 40 something amount, similar to 4 squadrons, yeah. And then Thailand only purchased 1 squadron. And you can see the list of offsets that they received are totally different. The Brazilian, they have the access to training, yeah, for a industrial cooperation, for assembly in the country, and even for potential exports of Gripen to third country. As for Thailand, they only receive scholarship for the Air Force personnel, limited number of maintenance, yeah. So I think when we want to push the agenda of defense industrial cooperation, we also need to be aware that scale is important when it comes to procurement. But there's also a danger of overestimating oneself, of course. But I think this is why we have KKIP, the Committee for Defense Industrial Policy, yeah, to ensure that the process of technology transfer is smooth, yeah, that certain preparations that need to be laid are planned, are funded, yeah, so that there's no delay and there's no significant problems, yeah, because sometimes the cause of the problem is not the industrial corporations, yeah, but from the government, from the red tapes, the bureaucracy, the support, the political supports, yeah, that often becomes the problem that hamper further industrial cooperation. I think that's all I can say. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Kuri. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Ibu Kuri untuk jawabannya. You still have another question. We take question from Mega Indriani, they're online. She asked to Mrs. Kuri, what should Indonesia do regarding the potential conflict in the South China Sea? Should we remain neutral or join one of these great powers? Or should we make a new coalition? That's the question.
Thank you for the question. I think the ideal would be that we become the peacekeeper, actually. And by doing that, we need to maintain close relation with both parties. Yeah, I think we need to learn that each party, they have their own security concerns and find a way to enlarge the mutual understanding and mutual interest. That's the ideal position, of course. But as I said in the beginning, we cannot do it alone, and actually we have a mechanism in ASEAN to do that, but ASEAN is not being united. So if we cannot be a peacekeeper, then at least we don't worsen the condition. Yeah. So being neutral, I think it serves our national interest, but it also guarantee the superpower that we're not going to do anything to cause them troubles as well. And I think we've been doing this in the right way, yeah, by engaging both superpowers. We have close relationship, economic, of course, with China, and we actually would like to have a more extensive defense cooperation as well. We don't build much cooperation with China, especially in terms of industry and technology. We have annual defense industrial cooperation meeting with China, but none significant coming of that forum. I think that's need to be utilized further. As with the U.S., we have the highest number of defense cooperation with the U.S. And we see the U.S. is necessary in the region to balance things out. Yeah. So I think we have two options. The first is diplomacy-wise. We still need to formulate a strategy to prevent major power occurs in the region and to prevent this conflict to affect our neutrality. And the second is for air power for the military to have a more mechanism and probably technical cooperation as to avoid misunderstanding that could lead to accidental war. And I think IDMM and IDMM Plus, Extended Asian Maritime Forum, I don't know whether there's a forum for Air Force actually in the region. I'm so sorry. But if we don't have that, probably it's about the time for us to have that. So if there's any unplanned encounters, then we don't jump into conclusion and take action that could endanger the fragile peace that we have in the region. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you. Jika tidak ada pertanyaan lebih lanjut, kita akan masuk ke sesi simpulan. We already discussed about the aircraft combat ability in the 5th generation of warfare and also the development of the military technology in supporting air combat in the 5th generation from Ibu Kuri's perspective. So now we are going to conclude this discussion. Colonel Rujito, I hand over this to you.
Baik, terima kasih Mbak Kuri. Hadirin sekalian yang saya hormati, we come to the end of this session. But before we close this, I would like to mention a few points that we have heard from our speakers. I will start with the first speaker, Gubernur Lemhanas RI, in his title, The 5th Generation Warfare. Basically, he mentioned about air battle management. Air battle management, he mentioned that new technology enables, invites, and also demands changes in the way of thinking. Foundation architecture facilitates the effective use of the new technology and concept. The intersection of technology and foundation architecture causes a change in the nature of the activities, and threats serve as a forcing function. There are 3 points that he mentioned about investment priority. The first one is operational capability buildings. The second one is fighter aircraft as a means and base for exercising air power. And he ended his presentation by quoting, air power has arguably been the dominant force element in most wars. Vice Admiral Samsul Rizal, his presentation title is Application of Air Combat Powers in Hybrid Warfare. There are many issues that he mentioned already. The first one is air combat power and intertwined phenomena, air combat power at the crossroads, air combat power in the hybrid warfare, and Indonesian Air Force air combat power in hybrid warfare, F-15, Indonesia, and Rafale F-3 are still valued, and the last one is a recommendation. What is important from his presentation when he mentioned that why is air combat power at the crossroads? There are 3 things. One is new technology, 2 new emerging threats, and combat air power is a fusionist, and the last one is nothing fits all strategy. He gave a recommendation for the Indonesian Air Force in 3 areas. First is human resource development, high standard infrastructures, and domestic and international partnership. And he closed his presentation by saying, the same old things, the same old results. What it means really, we have to change. Group Captain Jason Baldock, in his presentation is very interesting. He used the analogy of apples and onions and also the ivory to just remind us that when we talk about the 5th generation warfare, we talk about different things with different people. What we must do is how we can use our all elements to work together to achieve the common goals. That's the main point. The key effectiveness of the fifth generation warfare, according to Group Captain Baldock, is people or air power practitioners. So it is important to consider the manpower in achieving the fifth generation warfare. And Dr. Alban, he mentioned a lot of things about the capabilities of the Rafale, but he said that Rafale is omni-role and high versatility aircraft, low logistic footprints, easy maintenance, capacity multiplier, and able to handle all missions. He gave a recommendation to the Indonesian Air Force in 5 areas, which I have already mentioned before. But the 3 things that's very important is the 3 variables are organizational reforms, technology modernization, and operational readiness. A force multiplier to answer Indonesian needs: air defense, air superiority, anti-access denial, reconnaissance, close air support, dynamic targeting, also air-to-ground precision strike, anti-ship attack, and body refueling. And we come to Lieutenant General Stephen Serpo. He informed us how good the F-16EX is, and we need to consider a few things. The F-16s represent the backbone of global tactical fighter fleets, with more than 1,000 aircraft in service among several global operations. This jet relies on every day. With the USAF, I think this is the most important thing to consider. With the USAF commitments to the F-15EX, Indonesia will benefit from the combined investment of the United States Air Force, foreign military sales, customers, Boeing, and our hundreds of supplier partners. In terms of the role of the F-16, there are 3 things that's very important to consider. The first one is the speed. Of course, the speed is 2.5 Mach, and the range, unrefueled mission radius with 23,000 pounds of internal fuel, allow operation throughout Indonesian airspace and beyond. And the last one is about the sensors. Payloads is 29,500, and weapon and sensors flexibility to conduct an anti-surface and air-to-ground operation while retaining air-to-air capabilities. Ibu Kuri, in her presentation, he mentioned about how we deal with technology and in supporting the 5th generation warfare. He mentioned various of issues to include the issue in our region, the South China Sea, and how we deal and we position ourselves, Indonesia, in dealing with the issue that rise in the region. I think that's all that I can give to you, and thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Alban Siasia. Thank you, Lieutenant General Retired Stephen M. Shipro, and Ibu Kuri Maharani. Thank you so much for your willingness to be with us. Please give applause to our speakers for this second session. Also, thank you for Dr. Andi Wijayanto, SOS MSC, speaker pada sesi yang pertama, juga Pangko Ops UT 3, Marsda TNI Samsul Rizal, SIP, MTR Han. Terima kasih juga kepada Group Captain Jason Baldock yang juga hadir pada sesi pertama. Itu tadi serangkaian sesi pertama hingga sesi kedua dari pagi hingga siang hari ini. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu yang sudah hadir, baik secara offline atau langsung dan juga daring dari berbagai lokasi. Kalau tadi kita membuka dengan pantun, tampaknya tidak afdol ya kalau tidak ditutup dengan pantun juga. Izin saya berikan sedikit pantun. Beli sirih sambil belanja kuaci. Cakep. Tak lupa beli garam saat berbelanjanya. Terima kasih sudah hadir di acara ini. Sampai jumpa. Salam sehat untuk semuanya. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Baik, terima kasih kepada moderator yang telah memandu jalannya diskusi pada hari ini dan juga kami ucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh narasumber. Kami persilakan berkenan dapat kembali ke tempat.
Selanjutnya dimohon kepada Dr. Kuri Maharani berkenan menuju ke bawah panggung untuk menerima cenderamata yang akan diserahkan oleh Ketua Seminar.
Sekali lagi kami sampaikan terima kasih kepada narasumber dan mohon berkenan kepada Dr. Kuri Maharani PhD berkenan untuk menempatkan diri untuk menerima cenderamata yang akan diserahkan oleh Ketua Seminar.
Selanjutnya dimohon dengan hormat kepada Marsda TNI Samsul Rizal SIPM Terhan berkenan menyerahkan cenderamata kepada Dr. Kuri Maharani PhD.
Selanjutnya berkenan Ketua Seminar menuju ke podium untuk memberikan penutupan secara resmi seminar hari ini.
Yang terhormat Komandan Kodiklat AU, atas izin Komandan, karena beliau masih hadir bersama-sama kita, saya mewakili Kepala Staf Angkatan Udara, izinkan untuk menutup kegiatan seminar internasional dalam rangka peringatan Hari Ulang Tahun ke-76 TNI Angkatan Udara. Namun sebelumnya, perkenankan saya mewakili Kepala Staf Angkatan Udara mengucapkan rasa senang, bahagia dan bangga kami, khususnya warga Angkatan Udara, dan juga ucapan terima kasih kami yang pertama kepada para narasumber yang sudah berkenan hadir memenuhi undangan kami untuk berbagi pengetahuan dan pengalamannya dalam sesuai dengan tema pada acara seminar siang hari ini. Yang kedua, ucapan terima kasih kami sampaikan kepada Bapak-bapak dan Ibu-ibu sekalian yang berkenan juga hadir memenuhi undangan kami, baik yang hadir secara langsung di gedung ini maupun yang hadir secara virtual hampir di seluruh dunia, para duta besar dan juga staf, para atas pertahanan, PPI, dan juga ucapan terima kasih kepada masyarakat Indonesia juga yang ikut berpartisipasi mengikuti kegiatan seminar ini. Kami berharap bahwa melalui kegiatan seminar ini, kolaborasi antara pemerintah, khususnya Kementerian Pertahanan, TNI dan juga TNI AU, bersama-sama dengan para akademisi, industri, dan juga dengan masyarakat, terus kita tingkatkan. Yang pertama tentu dalam rangka saling berbagi pengetahuan, pengalaman untuk bersama-sama membangun kapasitas pertahanan kita, khususnya TNI Angkatan Udara. Di samping itu tentunya untuk bisa terus berbagi informasi dan pengetahuan, serta rasa saling percaya, khususnya antar negara, karena ini juga ada perwakilan dari para atas pertahanan dari negara-negara sahabat yang hadir, bahwa upaya kita untuk membangun kekuatan pertahanan bukan ditujukan untuk adanya sebuah perlombaan senjata, tetapi merupakan sebuah hak bagi sebuah bangsa untuk mempertahankan diri, menjaga dan melindungi kedaulatan dan keselamatan bangsanya. Di samping itu juga kita terus melalui forum ini untuk membangun dunia yang damai, kawasan yang damai, dan juga Indonesia yang damai. Demikian kami ucapkan sekali lagi terima kasih yang sebesar-besarnya dan mohon maaf apabila dalam penyelenggaraan kegiatan seminar ini ada kekurangan atau ada hal-hal yang kurang berkenan di para peserta seminar sekaliannya. Selanjutnya kami mewakili Kepala Staf Angkatan Udara untuk izinkan untuk menutup acara seminar ini. Pada hari ini Rabu tanggal 30 Maret 2022 pukul 14.30 waktu Indonesia Barat, seminar Internasional Air Power dengan tema Pembangunan Kekuatan Udara Nasional untuk menghadapi ancaman pada era perang generasi kelima secara resmi saya nyatakan ditutup.
Terima kasih kepada Pangkopsud 3 yang telah menutup secara resmi acara seminar internasional hari ini.
Mengakhiri acara, hadirin kami mohon berdiri. Menyanyikan lagu Bagimu Negeri. Hadirin kami silakan duduk kembali.
Baiklah hadirin yang berbahagia, tak terasa kini kita sudah mencapai di penghujung acara. Demikianlah seluruh rangkaian seminar Internasional Air Power dalam rangka peringatan ke-76 Hari Ulang Tahun TNI Angkatan Udara telah selesai. Tentunya semoga acara pada hari ini dapat bermanfaat bagi kita semua dalam menjalankan tugas-tugas ke depan.
Namun sebelum kami akhiri, izinkanlah kami melantunkan sebuah pantun penutup untuk acara hari ini. Di timur ada lanut saung laki,
cakep.
Di barat ada lanut Sulaiman.
Betul.
Usai sudah acara hari ini,
sampai jumpa di lain kesempatan. Saya Serda Elian dan rekan saya
Serda Ani mohon pamit undur diri. Terima kasih atas kehadirannya dan mohon maaf apabila terdapat hal yang kurang berkenan. Akhir kata,
wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat sore. Om Santi 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 Om. Salam Swabwana Paksa.
seminar Internasional Air Power TNI Angkatan Udara.
Kami dari Pegasus Family mengajak mari ikuti seminar Internasional Air Power dalam rangka memperingati hari ulang tahun ke-76 TNI Angkatan Udara dengan tema pembangunan kekuatan udara nasional untuk menghadapi ancaman pada era perang generasi kelima. Pada hari Rabu tanggal 30 Maret 2022 pukul 08.00 sampai pukul 15.30 waktu Indonesia Barat. Jangan sampai ketinggalan. Pegasus.
Halo Sobat Airman, mari kita ikuti seminar Internasional Air Power dalam rangka HUT ke-76 TNI Angkatan Udara pada hari Rabu tanggal 30 Maret 2022 pukul 08.00 waktu Indonesia Barat. Selamat menyaksikan. Salam kencana.